Hey everyone, it's me again with the Millennial Tunes podcast. How you guys been doing this week? I hope you guys have been safe and been well. We're just going to get into the regular segments of the podcast. I'm going to start with my daily wavelengths and some throwbacks for you guys. One of the main things I've been listening to is a new artist named Joyner Lucas, and he has a single with Chris Brown called Stranger Things. When I first looked at it, I didn't know if I was going to like it, but I really appreciated the song. Again, it's called Stranger Things. I read up a little bit on it, and they actually used they sampled the theme song from Stranger Things, which is cool. So they used that sample in the song. I really like Joyner Lucas's flow. I feel like he's very, from what I've heard so far, that he's very talented so far as a rapper, and I appreciate that. I felt that both him and Chris Brown both seemed to I feel like they just fit together, both of them together, rapping together, singing, and then at some parts it will be like some singing parts too, where it just fit well together. So I really appreciated that song. And then another thing that came out was Miss Janelle Monáe, who I've been waiting for her music to come out for forever long. It's been 5 years, and she finally released some 2 tracks and then 2 videos. So the songs are Make Me Feel and then Django Jane. So let's start off with Django Jane, because that was the one that really had me really they both had me inspired, but Django Jane really hit me in a different place. So Django Jane is is very different from what you would really think of what Janelle Monáe would do. Especially for me, because I didn't know that she started out as a rapper before she became a singer. So the whole song is her rapping the whole time, but it's all about female empowerment. It's all about it's all about female empowerment. And then if you see the video, I did reaction videos to both of these songs on my YouTube. But just seeing the imagery of her in a suit and her being surrounded by a bunch of dark-skinned black women and women of all shades, just in one room and looking powerful and strong, was something that was transformative, and what I feel that we all need to see, especially coming off of movies like we had Wonder Woman, now we have Black Panther. So just coming off of that moment and movement of seeing people being represented that should have always been represented in the media, is going to affect the younger generation in a very positive way, in my opinion. And I think it's very important. So I didn't expect her to be as great a rapper as she was. Like, some of her punchlines were amazing. She even had a punchline about her when it comes to her wearing a suit, and how people said she was a little bit too manly when she came in, which is very interesting when you look at the second song, which is Make Me Feel. So what's great about Make Me Feel is, especially, I love Make Me Feel is very Prince inspired, which I love. It's not trying to be Prince, it's just being very Prince inspired. It's like an ode to Prince. So I love the beat, I love the sound of it. It's very danceable. It's very, it's a song you can hang out with friends and listen to it. It's just a very good song in my opinion. But what made the song for me was watching the video. So I don't want to spoil the video too much, but it makes a big stance in showing in media bisexuality. So that's what obviously has hit me, because I'm bisexual myself. So, and then I have friends that are also part of the LGBT, and they're more sexually fluid. So if they're pansexual or bisexual or anything in between like that, it just hit them. It just hit us in a certain place, especially her being an African American woman. It's a big deal. So you get to see it's a lot of breaking of glass and breaking of like stereotypes and stuff like that, and you just seeing something like that on your screen with a really big artist that's well respected in the music industry is very important. So those have been the main songs I've been listening to. I don't recall if I don't think I've paid attention. Is there anything else I've been listening to that's not a throwback? Okay. So throwbacks I've been listening to. Again, I've been listening to a lot of throwbacks as usual. So let me get all the stuff. Let me look at my Spotify because that's what I've been using. Okay, so the main thing that I've been listening to so me and Brittany had a project that was due in one of our classes. We had to look at Missy Elliott's debut album, Super Duper Fly. So we're doing that for the project. So I've been listening to that this past, probably it's been like a month, like not a month, like probably 2 or 3 weeks. I've been listening to Super Duper Fly back and forth. But the main songs that I pretty much just play over and over again are like Sock It To Me with the Brat in it, The Rain, which is probably one of my favorite songs of the album, Beat Me 9/11. Then I have Pass the Blunt with Timbaland, Friendly Skies, and then Best Friends with Aaliyah. So, and then Why You Hurt Me, and those are like pretty much my favorite songs off the album. I love the album, period, but other than that, those are my favorite songs. Another thing that I've been listening to that's a little bit older is I've been listening to Sade. So I've been listening to Kiss of Life, Smooth Operator, and Smooth Operator, Kiss of Life, Is It a Crime, Is It a Crime, and I know this song. Why am I not blanking on it? If I heard it, it would be, I'd be so mad. Sweetest Taboo, which is weird because it's like my favorite Sade song ever, and I forgot the name, which is weird. But I've been listening to those songs, so I've been listening to Sade, Missy Elliott. Then I've been listening to Aaliyah as well. I've been listening to like Rock the Boat. I Care For You, from her last album. What else? And then I went back to the beginning with Asia Nothing But a Number. And pretty much just that whole album, her first album, I've been listening to. So that's going to be it for my daily wavelengths and throwbacks. So let's get into some hot topics when it comes to the music industry. So what I want to talk about first is how Spotify is, according to the New York Times, is the title of the article is Spotify is getting paid to save the music industry. Deal book briefing. So this happened on February 28th. That's been like a few days ago. But okay, so one of the titles of part of the article is like Spotify is certainly getting paid to be the music industry's savior. So perhaps I'm going to read some of it. So perhaps more than any other streaming service, Spotify has revived the fortunes of recording artists. It is funneling billions of dollars from its subscribers to music companies, which for the most part faced a bleak future. But a charity, Spotify is not. The company appears to be taking a bigger and bigger cut of its revenue it receives from listeners, according to numbers first made public on Wednesday. So, let's see. Going on to that. So, they strongly suggest that Spotify has successfully flexed its muscle as it negotiates the price it pays record companies for music. This shows up starkly in the filings of discussion of an expensive item called cost of revenues, which the filing says consists predominantly of royalty and distribution costs related to content streaming. The filing says Spotify has $3.67 billion of premium streaming revenue last year. The cost of that revenue last year was $2.87 billion. Then it goes into some math about that, and it goes into saying a big factor is signed more advantageous licensing agreements with music companies, and it goes into saying this decrease in cost of revenue as a percentage of premium revenue was driven largely by a reduction in content costs pursuant to new licensing agreements, and that's what it says. So, and when you look at Spotify, when you look at Spotify and how it pays artists, it's interesting that Spotify is getting. When you look at the article name, it's about being paid to save the music industry. You look at it and you're like, and you look at the article a little bit more and looking at what I've read, it's kind of interesting because it seems like it's doing more for the companies and not for the artists. And I don't know if you guys have seen one of our recent posts on our Instagram, but we actually posted a listing of, excuse me for this burp, that was nasty. But if you go on our Instagram, it's the second post that you will see. It has something that Nipsey Hussle said, but it says, "Attention everyone." It says 1 million streams on YouTube equals $690, and then 1 million streams on Spotify is $4,370. 1 million streams on Apple Music is $7,350, and then 1 million streams on Tidal equals $12,500, and then when you look at Amazon Music, it's only $4,020 for 1 million streams. So it's pretty much something just to say that people need to invest in Tidal. If either they're an artist or they support a certain artist, it just shows you what 1 million streams does for the artist that you support, or as you as an artist, you get to know that how much money you're actually going to get for what you make and what happens when your music is streamed on these different platforms. It's very interesting to see how low YouTube is. I'm not surprised YouTube is low, but it's kind of interesting because it's the biggest like streaming of videos and stuff like that. So it's very interesting to see that it's that low. Spotify has never really paid enough, in my opinion. So I'm not surprised about that price. But Tidal, I knew it was a lot better than most, but I didn't know it was going to be that much difference between Spotify and Tidal. Like, it's 4,370, and then you have 12,500. That's like a big difference. So when you look at that, that's very interesting, especially when you look at that article again called Spotify is getting paid. Is getting paid to save the music industry in the deal book briefing. Again, you guys can look at this on the NewYorkTimes.com and or you can just search it on Google and say Spotify is getting paid to save the music industry, and you guys can find it. So I think it's interesting, especially for people that use Spotify, just to give you guys a sense of how you contribute to, just how you contribute to how you give the artist that you support revenue, and then as an artist that puts music out, or say you do a podcast like me, or you do any creative content or something like that you put on Spotify or these other streaming services, how you get paid, and how certain practices are done. So I think this is something that's very interesting to look at. And next, I'm going to get into something a little bit different. I'm going to go into Donald Glover and his opinions on the music industry. So I'm on NME.com. So, and it's on the music news part of it all. So Donald Glover opens up on the music industry and says no one has good intentions. So I don't know if you guys know Donald Glover. He goes by Childish Gambino, but now he's going more as Donald Glover now, since he's been more using his voice more as an actor and director and creator. Excuse me, guys. So, God, sorry about that. All right, so like I was saying, he's gotten into not only music but also entertainment, like creating shows, especially the show Atlanta, which was such a big hit. He recently got was it an Emmy? I believe it was an Emmy for Atlanta. That was well deserved. It's a very good show. It has a lot of color commentary on the world we live in and how we interact with each other. So I really appreciate that. And Atlanta is actually coming out soon. So I can't wait to see Atlanta when it comes out. But getting on to the article. So let's get into this real quick. Let's just get into this article. Okay. So, and if you guys didn't know, Childish Gambino is going to retire the Childish Gambino musical guys. So it says after his release of his third album, he's going to retire from music, and his third album is going to be set for release via RCA, which is a record label. So let's get into some of the things he has to say about the music industry. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit, and here it says, explaining his disenchantment with the entertainment industries, Glover says, before my first album came out, I wanted people to like me and to realize that I had good intentions. And I realized that no one has good intentions. We all just have incentives. And he then recounts a tale about of his label's bosses ruining and intimate album playback. Then later in the interview, he talks of how his critically acclaimed show Atlanta may have a limited shelf life, and says that there are some few stories available to us. Glover says, that's why I'm not going to be making music much longer, and Atlanta won't interest me much longer. Best case scenario, the show is just a show that makes people aware. It's not going to do the transformative work we've been talking about. So then he talks about how and says, I'm really appreciative of this, his Grammy. I'm making another project right now, but I like endings. I think they're important to progress. And he goes on to say, I think if a lot of things had death clauses in them, we wouldn't have a lot of problems in the world, to be honest. I think endings are good because they force things to get better. So I think me as a Donald Glover and Childish Gambino fan, even though he's the same person, me as a Childish Gambino fan, it's sad to me that he feels this way, but it's not really surprising when it comes to it because, again, the music industry is a business. It's not really built for creatives. It's built for creatives to be successful and all that, but creativity is probably at the lower end of what it is because it's still a business at the end of the day. So it's kind of sad. Regarding his comments on people not having good intentions, it makes sense because there's always a battle between the creative and the business when it comes to how something's going to be portrayed, marketed, and stuff like that. It's always a battle because an artist might want something that's a little bit off that's not is not as commercial when they're promoting their album, but they have to compromise a lot of their creativity when it comes to being in a business. So it's always hard for that. But he talks about Atlanta and how that the show might not last, in his opinion, and he talks about how when he says there are so many few stories available to us, I believe he's talking to especially the African American community, and a lot of the social issues that he talks about and a lot of the stuff that he talks about is not portrayed a lot on television, and I feel like if this show goes away, we won't have enough shows to portray this fact. But now we have Lena Waithe with The Chi, which I really appreciate. You guys need to watch this show. It's a very good show. The character development of the show is very great. I just can't not rave about that show. It's on Showtime, or is it on HBO? I just watched it last night. I forget exactly what place it is, but if you guys have Comcast, or if you guys can download, you guys can get it for free or somehow, some way. I want you guys to watch that show, because that's another show that I believe is very important, and it shows a lot of things that does not get portrayed, especially when it comes to Chicago. So it's along the lines of Atlanta, but they're different shows, but they talk about similar scenarios. So I just hope that we continue this stage where we try to give people that don't get the time of day to share their stories and their perspective, that this continues on. So for me, it's sad, and I know for fans, we don't want him to retire from music, and I really don't want him to ever feel like he has to end Atlanta. But I do agree that with the last quote that I talked about he says if things had death clauses, then we wouldn't have a lot of problems in the world. And he says, I think endings are good because they force things to get better. And I really, I agree with that a lot. Because I feel like certain things, because you can even look at some TV shows, like some TV shows, there's like all these good seasons. Like I look at True Blood. I watched True Blood, and then like after probably the 5th season, I kind of was turned off by it, and like it kept going on and on and on and on. And it kind of didn't leave me with a good taste in my mouth for the actual show. So the rewatchability of the show was kind of dampened by it. So I kind of didn't, I wasn't interested in seeing the last season or the last episode. So it's kind of sad when you like a show and then you don't really want to go back and either watch it or watch it when it actually ends. But like if you look at Charmed, which is one of my favorite shows ever, that me and my cousin Amina introduced it to me when I was younger, so we watched that show together. I watched it from the beginning because I came in late, so I watched it from the beginning and kept going on until then. And then when the last episode came on, I watched it, and I still watch it to this day. I actually have the full DVD set of all the seasons and like the behind the scenes and stuff like that. It's very interesting how shows and entertainment can really change your life. So continue on with that, and then the fact that he's talking about death clauses, and that can pertain to anything, such as some of the stuff that's going on now, like the sexual harassment and stuff like that, and the inappropriate touching and stuff like, and things of that sort. Like if we figured out a way to end certain things, we're starting this change in how women should be treated and people in general should be treated in the workplace and stuff like that. So we're on a track that can potentially make things better. So I believe, like I said before, I really think, especially the last thing, I think endings are good because they force things to get better. I really believe in that. So the last thing I have to talk about when it comes to some news that has gone on, Diddy has shares his opinion on the culture of hip hop on hip hop predominantly, and then also R&B. But I don't know if you guys have watched the show The Four that was on Fox, and it was like a competition show. It was kind of similar. It was similar to The Voice and like other singing shows, competition shows. But the difference between this show and the other ones is that it was a battle for it was two people on stage at once, and they were battling to stay in these four seats. That's the main premise. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I've been so busy with school, so I haven't got a chance to watch it. So I'm gonna try and watch it when I have some free moments, which is like hardly ever. But I'll try to watch that. But he gave his opinions on rappers, and he says especially, and this article is on Billboard. It says Diddy encourages new rappers to be unique. I don't want the culture to get diluted. So let's get into the article. It says that Diddy took to Instagram on Tuesday night to give out some advice to the new crop of rappers, R&B artists, and singers, encouraging originality and saying he doesn't want the culture to be diluted. It is literally too much, Diddy said. Everybody's saying the same shit in different ways. He continues saying, if you had to be special, you had to be unique. In some aspects, I definitely agree with Diddy when it comes to me. I definitely agree with some of the things that we are seeing in music. I feel that some of the things we keep hearing, especially when it comes to hip hop, because again, I grew up in like the early 2000s, so to me, the end of stuff having, because I feel like in the early 2000s we were still in an era where we had so many like subgenres, and everybody had their own place to shine, and people were and you could hear a lot of stuff and different artists getting the success that they deserve. So and then you look at the 90s, there was like different branches of R&B and different branches of hip hop that all coexisted without fighting for each other to stay in one spot. So I feel like now, since that kind of closed off, especially after like 2009, where everything was bunched into one thing, we kind of lost some of the complexity and the uniqueness of music and some of the stuff. And then you look at rap, people are pretty much just talking about drugs and drug use and the same. It's pretty much the same shit every day, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, I can't. Hip hop has always, from its inception, has always been about a person's story, a person's struggle, and a person's perspective and experience. So I don't want to say, oh, this music is predominant, like all trash, because at the end of the day, and it's diluted, because people are still talking about their experiences, which is what hip hop is. So I don't want people to think that I'm trying to come down on the new rappers and stuff like that. And for me, that's my opinion, not Diddy's opinion. But I do think that it's the fault of people in power in the music industry that they don't search enough. Because you look on when it comes to Spotify, even though I have a lot of issues when it comes to how artists are being paid on Spotify, Spotify has a collection of artists from all over the place. And then you look at SoundCloud, like you can find all these people making music and creating stuff, and it's very unique sounding, and like certain people like K.A. Twigs, like I love the style she has. It's very different. It's R&B, but it's like a whole different wave. Dawn Richard from Danny D. Kane, has her own wave, and she's an independent artist, and she's been doing a lot of interesting things with her music and how she markets her stuff. So I guess in my opinion, we don't search for stuff. We just listen to what's on the radio and then expect everybody to sound like that. So that's why people keep coming out and sounding exactly the same. And I find it also interesting because when it comes to his diluted aspect of hip hop and R&B, when you look at Diddy and what he did in the 90s when it comes to music, before that, hip hop was not mainstream or pop music, and pop music is really just what's popular. It's not a certain genre of music. It's just what is popular to the masses. And that's why people will usually call pop mainstream music. That's why I called it mainstream. So he helped, especially after the death of Big, in my opinion, we started to see a lot of more commercial. It really became commercialized around that era, and Diddy's probably one of the biggest people that created that kind of mainstream appeal to hip hop music and R&B. So it's kind of interesting to see that he wants people to be unique and stuff like that, but he kind of helped in creating the landscape. What's wrong with my voice? He kind of created the landscape of what we have now. Like, he helped in creating the landscape. So I don't know. In some aspects, I agree, and in some aspects, I kind of disagree. And I feel like I feel like there's both sides to it. And then what I feel that this generation of music after 2010, when it comes to Spotify, the SoundClouds, and all this other stuff, we were able to get and receive art from everyone that is a creative and like that. But it's about searching for what speaks to you and what doesn't speak to you. So I feel like we need to do a better job, not as just listeners of music and creators of content, but also people that are in charge of the music industry. We need to get back into trying to find people that are unique and stop trying to find the same thing just to get money from it, because I feel like we're just focusing on money, especially when it comes to the music industry and where it's at right now. We're still trying to catch up to the technology age. So we're doing a lot of catch-up stuff, and I feel like that's the reason why it's more about the money and more about people sounding exactly the same than about creativity. So that's my opinions on that. Comment below, guys, about what you guys feel about what Diddy has said, what Donald Glover has said about the music industry, and how you feel about him stopping after his third album. And how do you feel about Spotify and how it's been perceived and how it's being marketed as a way to save the music industry? Well, I guess that's going to be it for that. So again, another thing that we have to talk about is how we're going to reform the music copyright for the digital age. This came out on the 25th of February, so that was a few days ago. So I want to get into this because I think it's very interesting, because I feel like this is something that does need to happen. I'm going to read a little bit of this article. Okay, so let's get into this. So it says, music creators are paid royalties through a ad hoc patchwork of laws, industry conventions, and private deals, many of which date back decades. The industry has struggled to adapt, stretch, and contort these structures as music has transitions to digital. These four bills are part of that process. Collectively, they are the biggest copyright legislative package to reach Congress in decades. To understand what each of these four bills does, it helps to know a few facts about music industry royalty flows. And then it shows you guys a diagram of what it is, and I'll just illustrate it a little bit for you guys. So it splits into two different categories, and I've learned this in school, so I have a good sense of what this is already. But for you guys, I'm going to say it. So it splits into sound recording and music composition. And music composition is the performance and the reproduction or distribution of music, and then you can break that down even more to talk about who is in control of these certain aspects of musical composition, if I can talk. It's songwriters and music publishers that have the main control of these aspects when it comes to musical composition. And then going to the other side, which is sound recording, it's the reproduction and distribution. It splits into that, and then performance and record labels and recording artists are part of that side of the breakdown of the royalty flows. So then it goes into some of the stuff that goes, how it's broken down, and how it's broken down with the different radio streams when it comes to radio, and how it is for iTunes and Spotify. And then it talks about how talks about the copyrights there. So one for the musical composition, as I said before, and one for the sound recording. And then it gives like a simple case. The former is created by a songwriter and managed by a music publisher, while the latter is created by a recording artist and managed by a record label. So, and then it goes into the bills that have been passed. So some of these bills, me and Brittany did a previous podcast talking about it, but there's been some new bills that have been added to this. So I'm going to just illustrate some of this. So there's an act called the AMP Act, and it's going to formalize royalty payments to producers and engineers for sound recordings played on digital radio services, so that they are more likely to get shares of those royalties. When it comes to this act, I feel that it's very important, because I feel like producers and engineers don't get the respect they deserve for helping to create the music that comes out. Like this producer, especially like some of my favorite people in music are Pharrell, who's a producer, Missy Elliott, who is an artist and producer, but she was mainly a producer first, and then you have Timbaland, who's a producer and artist as well. So just seeing them get the money that they deserve would be important, and then new producers coming out deserve the same amount of respect. So I believe, in my opinion, everybody that has a job in entertainment should get what they deserve, in my opinion. So I really appreciate that law being enacted. Then the classics and the Fair Play, Fair Pay Acts pertain to the digital radio services, and there are attempts to close the loopholes in copyright law. So it just goes into like a lot of interesting stuff about how we can redirect the funds to artists, to all the people that have any creative input into how a song is created and how an album is created. So I think this is an interesting article for artists. And then I don't want to just say artists, because I feel like people that want to get into the entertainment industry should be informed just as much as the artists and how they need to navigate the industry. So I think it would be a good idea for you guys to look at Forbes, go on Forbes and search for the big push to reform music copyright for the digital age, or you can also put that in google.com and it should pop up for you guys. So I think I'm going to be done with my hot topics for today when it comes to the music industry. So let's get into the next segment. I think I'm done. Do I have anything really to talk about? When it comes to the next segment, which is the day in the life of me. I really don't have a lot to say. So, what's been going on with me, like I said in the last podcast, is that I've been in performance class. So we figured out a set list. We now have a venue to go to, which is a venue that we previously went to called Volume Cafe. That's located in, what is it? Like near Turnersville. It's near Turnersville, New Jersey. It's like a little venue that we're going to be performing all of our set songs on the set list. So I'm on 4 songs. I'm on 4 songs for that whole set list, and there's like 8 songs. So I'm on half the songs on that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes together. So we figured out the set list. We did some practicing this week. We had some issues, but we're going to fix it. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. But I want you guys to also, when it comes to stuff like that, I want you guys to go and check out some of the people that I've interviewed, like Andorra, Eric McKenzie, Rachel, and everybody like that. I want you guys to look on Instagram and search for them at Rowan Music Group, so you guys can see what's going on with a student-run label at Rowan University, and see what it's like to. And Eric just recently did a interview on a radio station at Rutgers University, talking about his art and stuff like that, his music, his art, and stuff like that. So that'll be good for you guys to listen to. So I just want you guys to do that. So I'm going to make my day in the life of me very short, and I want you guys to look and search for that, because I really want you guys to help support some of my friends and just the whole initiative that Rowan Music Group is about. So again, thank you guys for watching. As always, please leave your comments down below and let me know your thoughts about some of the articles I talked about. Give me suggestions on some stories I should look into. Give me suggestions on some songs to listen to. Give me some throwbacks that you guys have, that you guys listen to all the time. Give me any comments that you guys have about the show, period, that you can give me. Again, thank you guys for watching, and have a nice day, guys. All right, bye.